What is going on, YouTube? It's Jake coming at you with another video where we're talking about computer science. Recently, guys, in the past couple weeks, I've been sitting down and reading some Windows internals. This is a hectic book, about 600 pages worth of just freaking knowledge, dude. So we've been enjoying that. Hopefully there'll be some videos in the future just about various topics that I've picked up throughout reading the book. But today, we're talking about something that's happened recently in the news. It's been going on for about 2 weeks now, and it's involving Azure, which is a tool I use, which is kind of why I'm interested in it. And essentially, a hacktivist group has essentially knocked Azure worldwide for 2 hours. This happened on June 9th, 2023, if anyone's watching in the future. But for 2 hours on a Friday afternoon, the portal, the Azure portal where you would go and manage your resources, just ceased to exist. And so I thought we would just talk about what happened, you know, who's responsible, how'd they do it, and maybe some, you know, some outcomes or just like some hot takes on the whole situation. So sit back, let's talk about some cybersecurity in the news. So here we are, we're on Bleeping Computer. In my opinion, this is a great website to just, you know, sip your coffee on in the morning, just scroll through the news and see what the heck's going on in the computer science world. But this was written on June 9th, as we can see here, so the day of the incident. And we can kind of see what you would expect in a DDoS attack, a denial of service attack. You're going to go try to access the portal at azure.com, and you're going to be brought to the screen where just our services are not available. So nice. So we would love to see that screen. Could you imagine just working? It's Friday afternoon, you got to close out the sprint, and then bam, that ticket that you want to do, you just couldn't get it done. Couldn't get it done. Not a good thing to happen on a Friday. And if we scroll down the article, we can see that Microsoft officially made a statement saying that's on the 15 o'clock Universal Time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Customers were struggling to get into the Azure portal. And then I think it was around the 1:30 p.m. slot here is when things were restored. So 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours of just, you can't access the computer. You can't access the portal. Not fun. So let's talk about who was kind of responsible for this. So this article just came out today, as of June 19th. If we take a look here, June 19th, and you can imagine, you know, June 9th is when the attack happened. At that point in time, all the news articles, all that Microsoft cared about was getting their service back online and preventing the denial of service from happening more than it needed to. Whereas now, after it was, you know, taken care of, Microsoft had 2 weeks to look through the logs, analyze the data, look back at older cases, and apparently last Friday, Microsoft attributed this to a APT group, an advanced persistent threat group known as Storm 1359. And this group is actually responsible for attacks against, you know, Outlook and OneDrive, but also Lyft, Tinder, and other US-based companies, which really means that whatever is targeting these big companies is not like the United States. They do not like Western companies, and they're also probably not some hacktivist script kiddies, like not some, you know, random group of people, random group of citizens doing this. To have the resources required to take down an infrastructure as a service company as Azure, you know, this is going to be a big botnet. This is going to be a lot of traffic that's needed to, like, stop these services from happening. And so I think we can look at some other articles. So we've been talking about this advanced persistent threat group known as Storm 1359, but they also have an alias known as Anonymous Sudan. So the country Sudan, okay, hacktivist group in Sudan, and it's fair to say that the Middle East, Western companies, you know, they don't get along. They don't get along just as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if the government of Sudan was paying for, you know, a company or paying for some hackers to attack Tinder and Lyft, and now Azure. It's pretty bold. And I will say, in doing the research of this article, of the story, yes, almost all of them point to anonymous Sudan, but I do want to just also add in there that, it could still be somehow linked to Russia. It's one of those things where all we're looking at are IP addresses that are not from the origin country. We can get into the details in a sec, but, it's 80% probably Sudan, but it could also be Russia just attacking allies that are with Ukraine. So that's fun. And it's funny because this anonymous Sudan character, I don't know what form post this was. Maybe it's like, what was it, WeChat? But needless to say, like, look at this post by the Microsoft. Since you lied and said you fixed the issue, today we played football with your services. Let's play a fun game. The fate of your services, which is used by hundreds of millions of people every day, is under our dominion and choice. You have failed to repel the attack, which has continued for hours. So how about you pay us $1 million USD and we teach your cybersecurity experts how to repel attack? Yeah. So enjoy long hours of downtime and all these reactions, good stuff. But oh my gosh, what a bold character this anonymous Sudan guy is. And it's one of those things where, like, yes, this person is posting online like, haha, we did it, but you know how these things work. A bunch of people will come on and claim that they did it. So as to who did it, not entirely sure. We can expect it to be some sort of Russian or Middle Eastern country. Some sort of nation-state hacker group is doing this and is well funded to do this. But let's kind of delve into the details of how this denial of service took place. So we've been talking about this layer 7 DDoS attack, and that just means that it's running on the application layer, which means it's not like some sort of MAC address, not some sort of IP address, not TCP, but it's actually the HTTP protocol, the hypertext transport protocol. And it was done from multiple different cloud services and open proxy infrastructure, according to the article. But that just means that someone went on cloud services, made some virtual machines, probably installed some sort of DDoS tool on all those virtual machines, and bang, hit Azure pretty hard. And some of the attacks, that are used, these HTTP flood attacks, which is kind of what you expect a DDoS attack to be, which is just a bunch of HTTP requests. But the way they did it, there's also some techniques involved here. Some cache bypassing, which essentially means we're not going to hit the same endpoint every time. A CDN, so we have CDNs out here that will essentially cache requests, so that way they don't have to go back to the origin server every single time and just refetch the same data. Anyone that's familiar with CloudFront or developing on cloud infrastructure knows that, hey, you can have this CDN that will just put your web app on the edge computing. Cache bypassing, essentially just trying to get past that layer of the edge and get to the core services that are running behind the edge. And the way you do that is by targeting multiple different endpoints, not the same URL each time. You could just kind of have like a list of all the different URLs to try to attack. So that way there can't be any caching because there's too many different targets to cache. Another tactic that was used was this idea of a slow LoRaS attack, which essentially means, it's an HTTP request, but there's a TCP handshake that takes place between, each request that you send. The server is going to send you data, and then you have to acknowledge that data that the server sent you, so the server knows, like, okay, like, we're good. And so the slow LoRaS, what that's going to do is essentially just not acknowledge. It either won't acknowledge or it'll do it very slowly to the point to where the server has to keep its resources up to keep the session open. There's a great video done by ComputerPhile, and maybe I'll even link it in the description because I absolutely love ComputerPhile. Those guys in Britain are freaking awesome. And they have a great video on how a slow low-risk attack works. So if you want some additional homework to do, by all means, go for it. It's a fun type of tactic used in denial of service attacks. So that's basically it. And what does this all mean? Let's talk about what it all means. So I do have some hot takes on this type of news that's been circulating around, it seems like, for the past couple of years. We do live in a super interesting time on the internet where, you know, the internet's the Wild West, and if you get caught hacking a company, and that company is in your nation, well, you're absolutely getting booked, taken to the slammer, and you're not touching grass for 5, 10, 15 years. But if you hack a company that is not in your country, dude, right on. That's cool, dude. Yeah, no, countries don't send hackers cross borders to get, you know, arrested and all that jazz. If anything, the government will come to you and be like, "Hey, do you want to work for us?" I mean, I feel like that's how it's been going on these past couple years, and I wonder how long that will last. Maybe 10, 15 years from now, there'll be like a global organization that can handle these type of affairs. But for the time being, you know, these nation-state adversaries, I mean, when they want to do some damage, they can do some damage. It's also crazy because, yeah, this was Azure. It was Azure that got hit pretty hard, and infrastructure as a service provider, and I think they have like 30% of the cloud share, user share, which means that kind of 30% of enterprises now have, you know, they're a little bit liable. Like, you might be Home Depot, but if your servers are in Azure, technically this advanced group is a threat to your enterprise's, you know, core business, which is crazy. It also kind of draws the line of like, what is war? I know we think of war as like, you know, guns shooting at people and sadly fatalities, but I mean, really, if a nation state were to cut off the internet, cut off Azure, and the world was without internet for 2.5 hours, I mean, like, at what point is that war? I know it's like a standard question, but it is something that I would like to see talked about more in thoughts in below kind of thing. And thirdly, it's something that gets looked over a lot, or maybe it's just like a talking point, but we always talk about high availability and having, you know, multiple instances of your service available in case of like something bad happening. Well, yes, it is very unlikely that something bad is going to happen in an Azure data center. I'm sure all the servers and all the servers at AWS and Google Cloud as well have like batteries to where if the power went out, like those servers are still going to cook for about 8 more hours until like those batteries die. So the only way that the servers are actually going to go down is if like an employee error, if there's like just an error within the company, or a natural disaster obviously just completely wipes out the facility, or thirdly, there's a hacker group. There's a hacker group that does a denial of service attack. So, you know, having those additional zones, those additional availability zones, kind of data redundancy, and having your services being clustered instead of just standalone, really helps in situations like this to where you're not affected too much. So, yeah, this was a fun article. I had a fun time looking at it. I hope you enjoyed. Stick around. Who knows what other news articles we'll have. And by all means, we're going to be making some videos about Windows internals too. So, yeah, enjoy.